I couldn't hear anything.
La connexion n'est pas venue. Oh, ça va? Ça va, là. Maintenant, tout à l'heure. Ah, c'est ma caillou, c'est ma caillou.
Dr. Juliet, can you start, please?
Yes, I was waiting for Dr. Hanan. I can go ahead and start.
Yeah, you can start now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oui, vous pouvez commencer.
Sure. Good afternoon.
Bon après-midi, collègues. Bon après-midi à tous.
My name is Juliet.
Je m'appelle Juliette.
Juliet Wasswa-Mugambwa. Before I project my
Et mon projet.
PowerPoint, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Tout d'abord, j'aime vous remercier pour me donner cette opportunité pour
training of the Africa Women's Leaders Program. Beyond what you have seen on my bio, I'm originally from Uganda. I grew up in a small village in Uganda, and one of 10 children. My mother was married off when she was only 14 years old by my grandparents, who needed the money then to send. They had 6 children, so they needed to send the boys to school. So my mother and my 2 aunts, all they learned was only to read and write. And then they were married off. Fortunately, my mother, when she got married, she had 10 children, 7 girls and 3 boys. And for me, being here today, it's not because of where I am as an employee of United Nations. It's because of my mother. She instilled in all of us, children growing up, that equality between gender is quite important. And also the fact being that is when we talk about gender equality or women's empowerment, it starts from home. I've taken time now to reflect for quite some time that it was the family setting that really got me where I am, and all my siblings, because all of us 10 children were given access to education from the tender age to the highest level where we all wanted to be. So when it comes to how African women or gender empowerment issues, it always starts from the foundation is at home with the parents. And with that introduction, let me now project the PowerPoint. I will perhaps spend just a few minutes just to go over through the PowerPoint, and then I will open up for question and answers. The slide I have up, give me a second, I need to, okay. presentation today is about maximizing the potential of African women for sustainable development in Africa. And the beginning of this training, you already had the opportunity to get a presentation about the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm taking the angle to look at the drivers of sustainable development and the role of the African woman can play to achieve the SDGs on the continent. This first slide that I've projected, it shows both the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as well as the African Union Agenda 2063. They marry all the activities and the issues that articulated in both agendas, they pertain to Africa's development and in particular women. So the pillars that I'm going to really focus on are 4 pillars, which are the drivers for sustainable development on the continent. And those include the pillar on people, which has underneath it includes poverty, hunger, health, and education. As we all know, the SDGs declare the world's determination to end poverty and hunger in all their forms and dimensions, and to ensure that all human beings can fulfill their potential in dignity and equality and in health environment. Recognizing that there can be no true sustainable development if the farthest left behind are not supported. So we know that it's quite important to ensure that the voices of all, including the women, youth, migrants, and displaced people and other minority groups are included in decision-making. Poverty on the continent, just to give you a context where things are today, since between 2013 and 2019, the rate of poverty reduction in Africa slowed compared to the previous decade. And when we look at hunger, the number of the undernourished people in Africa increased to 20% higher in 2019 than 2013. Food insecurity is higher in Africa. About 53% of all the adult population it is than in any other continent. And the majority of the undernourished reside in East Africa, followed by West Africa. Issues related to health. We are all now, COVID-19 has exacerbated and opened up the space to know that that is still a major challenge for the continent. And when we look at the issues related to education, where we are today, with the COVID pandemic and with the closure of all the schools, about 250 million children in Africa, both secondary and primary education levels are out of school. And as a result, this is causing a lot of issues that will pertain, if not really addressed, it could lead to some difficult issues, which will be just to amplify the challenges that are already there on the continent when we look at the issues related to peace, security, and development. Pillar number 2, driver number 2 is on prosperity. Under prosperity, there we see the social protection issues, gender equality, and other inequalities, as well as income inequalities on the continent. I will make sure that I don't belabor this one, but I wanted to raise, to show you, to highlight one issue on social protection. About only 13% of all Africans, excluding North Africa, where the proportion is about 39%, are covered by at least one form of social protection benefit. And under there, the issues related to the income inequalities. Inequality, if we break up the sub-region on the continent, in North Africa, extreme poverty has almost vanished, while in Central Africa, it is still higher than 50%. Just to give you a little bit of an idea about where the challenge is before I get to what women, African women could do and are capable of to make sure that there is a acceleration in the implementation of the SDGs. The driver number 3 is on planet. And under planet, we see the inclusion is the climate action, life below water, life on water, clean water and sanitation, sustainable consumption and production. The SDGs set a goal to protect the planet so that it can support the needs of the present and the future generation. And nearly almost every day, we witness that interconnectedness, which is fundamental to sustainable development. The issues related to climate action. This is the only SDG in respect of which most African countries are on track. And we are all aware that our countries are making progress towards the emissions reduction target. And 43 countries in Africa have achieved the targets of the climate action. Moreover, you know, Africa, when we look at the issue related to life below water, Africa has achieved mixed progress against this goal with a protection rate of only 46% of its marine key biodiversity issues. The major gaps relate to unsustainable fisheries and exploitation of fish stock that are dwindling because of the illegal fishing on the continent. I will move very quickly so that we have more time for the interaction to look at the pillar number 4, which includes peace and security, democratic governance, rule of law, governance and protection. As I'm well aware that you had a session on the Africa peer review mechanism, there I will highlight one of key issues under this pillar number 4 on peace. And in particular, I will give you a percentage here where it shows that 74% of African countries face major challenges in achieving SDG number 16, which is on peace and inclusive societies, while 23% face significant challenges. So we know that this pillar number 4 is quite critical when it comes to achieving the SDGs on the continent. Last but not least is the driver number 5, which is on pillar 5, partnerships. It includes the official development assistance, remittances, foreign direct investment, aid for trade, as well as science for technology. We know that the SDGs call for a spirit of strengthened global solidarity, and that problems that we face today, not only in Africa, but globally, the geographies and sectors require collaboration of all stakeholders. The drivers of these crises are multidimensional, and no one actor can or should address them. it is important to create both traditional and new partnerships to overcome challenges, harnessing the respective strengths of different actors from grassroots communities, national governments, funding partners, program countries, as well as private sector, keeping in mind also to include the homegrown innovators, to ensure that the efficiency is tailored to the response to the crisis as we are now witnessing the COVID-19 pandemic. The key question we have to ask ourselves today is Africa on track to achieve the SDGs? And the answer specifically to that question is a no. In that respect, as per the last slide I have for my presentation, what can the women do, African women, what could we do to make sure that the driver to implementation of SDGs, we play a key role? To facilitate that, I'm proposing that there is a need for renewed focus or to access not only the liquidity that the countries would need, but it's also important to strengthen the social protection systems, reduce the poverty in a sustainable and resilient manner. In particular, it's going to be important for the African countries to really focus on the key, invest in the key enablers. Those include the reproductive health, mental health, primary health care, education, quality governance, and address the income inequalities. Most importantly, it's going to be important to invest in the digitization and modern technologies to be able to increase the productivity within the countries. I was able to listen into the previous session that you had about access to the digital e-learning. And it's quite important that we all seize this opportunity that is available to us to really utilize the digital technology. Most importantly, I think what we need to also keep in mind, we are the privileged few who are able to have access to the digital technology, is to keep in mind that those in the rural communities, most of them, the young girls, so that they also have, there is a system that also provides to them the digital information, access to technology so that they are not left far behind. And that leads me now to the gist of why I agreed to be part of this conversation, maximizing the potential of African women to achieve the SDGs. We all know and we are all aware that women have a critical role to play in all the SDGs in many targets, especially though we recognize that women's equality and empowerment as both the objective and as part of the solution. African women are more economically active. They are farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, and the numbers of African women involved in the economy is much more higher than anywhere in the world. Therefore, that is my first point to make emphasis that Africa must make full utilization of all the skills and talents of all its citizens, including its women, to transform the economies and societies. And along those lines, women's rights to equal access to all avenues to end poverty, including social protection, safety nets, and access to technology is very critical. My second point why maximizing women's potential will facilitate achievement of the SDGs relates to the SDG that is on ending hunger in the continent. We know that women prepare up to 90% of all the meals in households. Yet when it comes to tough times, the women and girls will eat the least. Therefore, it's quite important that as we articulate, call for what we could do, we make sure that all women have access to consume enough food with adequate nutrients. The other issue I think I need to highlight here has to do with the challenge that we have to take on as African women to make sure that women, as we articulate where we need the numbers of women to be included, if we are to look at the science, technology, and innovation, we know that women's limited in the African women in particular. The representation in marine science is very, very low. So it's quite important that we make a call and we articulate and we stay persistent to make sure that there is the representation of African women is not only in some of the key sectors, but it is in all sectors. That way, then the balance will come as we move progressively to achieve the SDGs on the continent. African women have the social responsibility as well as social sustainability within them to facilitate the achievement of the SDGs. Therefore, it's quite key that women are provided with opportunities and resources to be able to facilitate the well-being in a way that is aligned with the goals, SDGs, as well as the Agenda 2063. Investing in female education and health, as well as female-centered productive economic activities, will drastically reduce poverty in Africa. And it will also have a multiplier effect in all sectors within the continent. I will end my presentation in conclusion with a call to action. Why so? It's because we've seen all we have all seen, and we're still undergoing, the tremendous strain that COVID-19 has really created. And it's not only created the economic repercussions that we see, but also the challenges that exacerbated when we hear about the violence against women that has gone up, and as well as the space for participation, which has narrowed. Under this kind of umbrella, I would like to leave you with a point that moves us to look at the underlying opportunities that in front of us. And it's not only for specifically to survive, but to see how we can look at the key opportunities that are available to us to achieve the gender equality for Africa and for all women, including the young girls in the continent. As we are all aware, the key underlying issues or the strength that we have to look at and the examples that are out there in the midst of the COVID-19. One, today, just last month, the World Trade Organization appointed the first African woman and the first woman, who is the Nigeria's Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as its Director General. Number 2 on the continent today, since January, the African Continental Free Trade Area just commenced, this January, which is another window of opportunity. As the projections show us that the CFTA will connect 1.3 billion people across 55 countries with a gross domestic product of $2.5 trillion. That's the estimate coming from the ECA. And with such a large single market created under the agreement, there is a potential for new trade and entrepreneurships opportunities for women across the sectors of agriculture, manufacturing, and service as well. Number 3, as an underlying opportunity that we have to keep in mind is the Generation Equality Forum is to take place at the end of this month. This is a huge momentum that is building up it's ground up from the civil society. It's a global gathering where, gender equality women will be convened by women, UN Women, and co-hosted by the government of Mexico and France. It will bring together the governments, corporations, and change makers around the world to define and announce ambitions, investment, and policies. It is anticipated that the result will be a permanent acceleration in the equality, leadership, and opportunities for women and girls worldwide. So we should stay very positive and tuned on to what is coming, what is in front of us. Also, number 4, the African Union has appointed the first woman deputy chairperson of the commission. So that should give us, as African women, the conviction and the drive to achieve the inclusive sustainable development, focusing on how the society and economies will grow to ensure that women are involved in the economic activities to be able to achieve sustainable development on the continent. In conclusion, I'm of the view, and this comes from my upbringing, that all of us women, as well as men, but in particular women, we must assert ourselves. We must assert the opportunities that we desire, the opportunities that we need. We need to move beyond the waiting that the space will be provided to us. We have to make the space for ourselves together, supporting each other to really make that space open up and pull each other up to be able to achieve sustainable development. Africa needs a radical shift in structures to eliminate all stereotypes, because we know stereotypes are what is keeping African women in the back burner instead of being a partner in the journey of achieving the SDGs as well as Africa's priorities as articulated in Agenda 2063. Thank you very much, and I'll stop here to be able to to have an interactive discussion with you all. Thank you. Yeah, I see that the connection was not so good. Yes, I'll make sure that I send that, or Dr. Hanan will share the PowerPoint with with you all. But can you hear me well?
Yes, we hear you very well, yes.
Okay. Any questions? We can have at least another 20 minutes of
Yes.
interactive discussion.
We have Lucy who has a question. We'll allow Lucy to talk.
Sure. Lucy, go ahead, please.
Also, we have Susan until Lucy starts talking. Okay. We have a question, Doctor. He says, would I be correct to add housing or shelter as an additional pillar?
The housing and shelter, it goes under the is under the prosperity, which is the goal 12. I think it's goal 12 on urbanization and 11. Let me pull up the goals. Definitely, it's already embedded in one of the pillars, housing and shelter. And what was the other question?
We have a question from Mandisa as well.
Okay.
Would you be able to send some slides afterwards? I'm struggling to get this. We are going to send, yes, we will send.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we have Lucy. Lucy is here. Please, Lucy, you can ask your question.
Lucy, please go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. So Lucy is not there. We have also Suzanne.
Okay, Suzanne, what's the question, Suzanne?
We have also Sadna.
Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Is it me or someone else?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Tell me your name and go ahead. And then.
Okay, I'm Susan Were from Kenya.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very glad that you have shed a lot of light on some of the pillars that we would like to engage with to see change and make impact in our communities, in our countries, and globally. My concern is that how about at the community level, sorry, where we have several women, we have several girls without accessibility to any of the pillars that you are talking about. So how can we ensure that what you have trained us on today is cascaded to the community level and help that woman at that level who doesn't have a voice by herself? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Suzanne. So I'll take maybe 2 questions before I respond to you. What was the other colleague who wanted to ask a question?
Yes, so we have Lucy.
Lucy, please go ahead.
Lucy, unmute, please. Okay, we have Sadna. Please unmute, Sadna, if you have the question.
Yeah, it's unmute. Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Sadna is here.
Yes, I'm from Mauritius. And it's true that you've said that African women are more economically active. And if we take the case of Mauritius, we find that especially girls, they do very well, primary, secondary, tertiary. But when it comes to at the CEO level, very few women would arrive as CEO. But yet, when we do have some women who are as CEOs, you find that somewhere, either it's the system that fails, or is it that women are emotionally maybe weaker, but the sense arrives that they can't hold very long at the CU level. I'd like to have your response. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much. So I'll take these two questions first, one from Susanna and then from Mauritius, Lucy. Susanna, the women at the local level, putting the pillars as drivers for sustainable development, I took all the goals, you know, and embedded them in a way that really humanizes them and easier to explain. But the goal, you know, there are 17 goals, and 16 goals are all related to human development, and goal 17 is the one that looks at the partnerships. So the women at the community level, they were involved in all the pillars, but in particular, pillar number 1, which is about people, where we see, you know, what is embedded there is the poverty, it's the health, it's the education and hunger. Those are critical when we think about, you know, people, human beings, because, you know, the goals are supposed to be humanized. It's about bringing in the equality, which is not about economics, but to have the well-being that is embedded in the Sustainable Development Goals. I hope I've answered your question for that, about the girls and the young women at the community level. And in addition, we also now see that in a few African countries today, when it comes to looking at review, voluntary national reviews that look at what the countries are doing to support to implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, there is also the local reviews that are taking place in some countries to make sure that information is also doesn't stop in the urban areas. And in my presentation, I spoke about us all to be cognizant and to make sure that we include the rural women and girls. Perhaps the whole government as it is might not take it into consideration. We should not leave it to maybe the social sectors or the Ministry for Gender. It should be our responsibility as leaders where we are today to make sure that we advocate for those women in the villages, in the rural areas, in the communities, so that they are also included in the process of Sustainable Development Goals, the implementation part of it, that they are also included. And to the question from Mauritius, you see, for me, I think the challenge is where we need to focus more is first and foremost at home. Because girls have to also have this opportunity that tells them in the household that they can achieve anything where if they put their mind to it, and they can go to school and strive for more. Because the socialization in a lot of our households, it tells you that girls should go to school, but they also should think about getting married and have children and make a home. And boys are given, the messages differ. And this is where I started where I started speaking to you all. I always use myself as an example because my mother got married at 14 years. Today, that's illegal. But those days, it was allowed. And today in Africa, Africa is one of those countries, continents, where even after today, child marriage is still very rampant. But in a household, if the parents, in particular the mother, instills in the girls that they can go to school and get as far as they want, they should not keep it in mind that when you finish secondary education, if you go to this education, then you should get married and have children. Then I think that way the numbers will start expanding vis-a-vis where we are today, where we see that there is a drop-off even in countries like Mauritius, that the girls have access to education as boys, but they stay, they don't move up higher in more responsible positions in government when they get older. I'll take any other question, please, or should I check in the chat box?
Yes, the chat box is
Okay.
We have from Susan again. She say, my concern is that there is need to ensure resources also get to the local level. Instruments of accountability and transparency need to be strengthened. This is because somehow communities are excluded from mainstreaming development, health, food security, and poverty reduction programs. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I could comment.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very concerned because I work a lot with women and the girl child at the community level. And it is a fact that, especially in my country, Kenya, there are certain communities where women have been completely excluded from mainstream development, accessibility to knowledge, accessibility, acquisition of resources. And you go down there to the community level and you find the situation is very, very desperate. So I'm really concerned on what can practical activities that can be carried out to ensure that that woman right there at the community level, that girl child right there at the community level can have a voice so that they can also have accessibility even to information, you know, and to resources. And I'm happy that in the morning we were taken through monitoring and evaluation. And I am just wondering how we can strengthen the instruments of accountability, transparency, that community level, taking cognizance that in Kenya, for example, we have the devolved system of governance, which was meant to take resources, services to the people, but unfortunately, that has been very elusive. I don't know what you have to say.
What I can say is, I think building on what you've said, that in the morning you had a session on monitoring and evaluation, and given that you know, the access to resources, the inequality gap on the continent and in some of the countries is quite high. What I can propose when it comes to transparency or accountability, that is at the local level, it's the local leaders that have to be held to account. But to get to that point is to be able to access to information would mean that you yourself as a community worker is to provide the information that these women at the community level really need. I'll give you an example. Hello? I think there is an interruption in the...
Yes, sorry about this. We have Hasana also.
Okay. I can give you an example how it could be done. When I speak about giving access to information, many years ago in my country, Uganda, there was a mobilization of changing the constitution and providing information about women's rights, women's, access to property and land, and awareness that was created. My mother, as I told you, I grew up in a village, and I had gone to visit her. So what people did that time, the civil society organizations, They took the information not from the city, from the parliament, that talked about the responsibility and accountability and awareness and the rights that women had. And they translated it into languages that the women could understand, because my mother could not speak English. She stopped in grade 4. And they projected this information through radio to the villages. So here I show up from New York to go visit my mother. And I'm asking her about what's going on, and she says, oh no, you know, now we know our rights. I know if my husband dies, your father dies, nobody's going to come and tell me to get out. This is my land. You know, I was so shocked because we sit where we are and we think this is where the world revolves. But the information just for a community lady, those women in the villages, the radio, the communication had transferred the legislation in parliament, in the capital city, to them who understand through the civil society organizations, to also know and to be aware that you have a right, you matter, and you know, nobody comes and say you don't have a right to your property just because, you know, culture says the stereotypes that we have in our countries. So this is if and then once the women are aware about the information, they have that information, then they can hold those local leaders to account. And this is where the transparency component comes in. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Let me see if there is another comment or question. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. I like the example about Uganda. Thank you.
Yes, and it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy because we always think that when we say we need, we will get. No. It's like knocking on the door continuously without stopping until you really get a space, or you enter through a window instead of somebody opening a door for you. I see a comment here.
We have Hassana.
Okay,
Hassana.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, good morning. Go ahead.
Good evening. It's a good presentation. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Ma. I've already sent a question to the Q&A, but I just wanted to give a little talk or contribution towards what you've said on the inequality about the women in the family. In fact, I was a victim of it. Last 2 years, I applied for a foreign affairs job. In fact, it was my dad that kept on pressurizing me that I should go for it. He called even the minister, he talked to him. So it happened that our firstborn works with the foreign affairs. So he has an internal issue, which he has to rectify on his own. But being as the male child and as a first child of the family, my dad had to call the minister and start explaining. So the minister had to give him an option. He says, is it Ibrahim or is it Hassana? So with that, I had to explain to my dad that, look, Ibrahim is already in the system. He knows what he did. He should rectify his issues. But at long run, my dad never told me that he opted for Ibrahim. It was after like a month later, I called my dad. I said, I've not had anything about the discussion about you and the minister. He said, Hassana, he was just trying to play politics on me. In fact, I was depressed. Later, I said, okay, this is about gender equality. Since you are trying to show me that, yes, he's your first child, he's the son, he's the male of the family, you need to explore him to a higher standard. in as much me, I'm a married person and I have my family, but my husband has already given you his mandate that he wants Hasana to go to any limit of where she can walk. He doesn't care about it, but all his concern, he wants me to prosper. But you as my dad, because of the inequality or the gender bias that is in the family, you decided to say, okay, this Ibrahim should go again while he's already in the system. That was just what I had wanted to tip in. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You know, that example is also quite typical, but it's also important for us to know that as women, we have to be our own advocates as well. To be able, because you know, society and culture tells us you have to hold your head down and don't say anything. But once we move beyond that, then you know it's quite important that you are even able to articulate that to your father, you know, because in most instances, then you know you hold it in and you say, okay, I'm a girl, you know, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to take care of my family. Why should I now be going the opposite direction? So it's a journey that it starts at home, whether we like to believe it or not. The foundation is quite important, and it's not even just stopping at the foundation. It's how now if you have your own family, how you socialize your own children. You know, both if God has given you both, you know, girls and boys, or if it's only girls, you tell them they only have to go to school and then finish and get married, or you give them that space also to be empowered to contribute much more beyond, you know, being a wife and a mother. It's quite important.
Thank you, Doctor.
I think we are almost at the end of our time.
Yes. Yes, thanks a lot for this lovely presentation.
Quite a few participants were having difficulty with the connection. So I would share my presentation or Dr. Hanan could share it with the participants, the slides, and I will also add more elements to the, you know, later on to the presentation I gave, building on the slide presentation to the participants. But thank you so much, and all the best to all of you, and let's stay in touch. Send me an email or what's the link on my LinkedIn link? I shared it so that we can stay connected, because I think for me, where I am today, I believe that the connection and the networks we create are what will drive us to the next step in our lives, to be able to make sure that we pull all those young women and the elderly in the rural areas to also feel like they are human and they can contribute to society. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Hanan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Juliet. Thank you very much for such wonderful presentation. I guess we all enjoyed it very much, and we're looking forward to see you on the platform. Just join the platform, connect with the people there, because all participants are very active there, and we have a special area for trainers. So you will find your name and photo and bio, everything there, so you can communicate with them through the platform. And if they still have any questions or comments, they can reach out for you. Thank you so much again, and thank you all. And we'll meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. Cairo time. Okay. See you tomorrow.
Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.